Reparations. When you hear that word, what do you think of?
Money? Compensation?
An apology?
Righting a wrong?
Or maybe just, huh?
The topic of reparations has come up a lot.
Especially in the lead up to the 2020 presidential election.
About America's
Original
Sin.
slavery.
So, what exactly are we talking about here?
Simply put, reparations is the act of making amends for a wrong.
Or an injury committed toward an individual or a group of people.
Reparations for slavery is the idea that some form of compensation needs to be made.
To the descendants of the 4 million Africans that were trafficked and enslaved in the United States.
Now, I can already hear some of you say,
But wasn't that over 200 years ago?
And you are right, but that doesn't mean African Americans don't face repercussions from it.
To this
Day.
So, this past June, Congress held its first congressional hearing to discuss Bill H.R. 40.
H.R. 40 would authorize $12 million to study and develop reparation proposals.
the study will focus on the appropriate remedies for slavery and discrimination.
And the impact of these factors on living African Americans.
The bill also considers a national apology from the U.S. government.
Something that to date has never happened.
Maybe the best way to say what we've been through, they should apologize.
In due time, we do need an apology.
Yeah, I think they should actually.
Now, some of you might be thinking,
It's about time.
While others might say,
Why should we have to pay for something that happened so many years ago?
Well, time to open your history books.
and try not to fall asleep like you did in AP US history.
American slavery lasted almost 250 years.
If you count the nearly 100 years of Jim Crow segregation that followed,
then that means officially sanctioned racial oppression actually lasted over 300 years.
This created a significant wealth gap between Black and white Americans that still
Exists.
today,
The federal government first considered it in 1865, when newly freed Black people were promised up to 40 acres of land.
hence the bill name H.R. 40. Get it?
Anyway, after President Lincoln was assassinated,
This special field order was overturned by President Andrew Johnson.
he decided to return the land to the planters who owned it instead.
Like, dude, seriously?
fast forward to 1989.
Former Democrat Representative John Conyers Jr. of Michigan introduced legislation to discuss what reparations might actually look like.
He introduced this bill every year for nearly 30 years.
But despite his best efforts, it never went anywhere.
Until this June,
When the bill received its first ever congressional subcommittee hearing.
under the new sponsorship of Texas Representative Sheila Jackson Lee.
Supporters of reparations believe it would not only help make amends for slavery and segregation,
But also for its cruel and crippling legacy.
But opponents of reparations believe America shouldn't be held responsible for her forefathers' sins.
One vocal opponent is Republican and Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell.
He told reporters, "We've tried to deal with our original sin of slavery by fighting a civil war, by passing landmark civil rights legislation. We elected an African American president. I mean, problem solved, right?"
Many supporters of reparation don't blame white Americans today for slavery.
but they do recognize that years of oppression have prolonged this hierarchy.
Where whites have privileges that people of color don't.
Although there are people like Senator Bernie Sanders and former President Barack Obama who oppose the idea that money alone can address slave reparations.
They do support investing in marginalized communities. So,
What do you think would be a just compensation for African Americans?
Land and our wealth.
Money.
An apology letter. That's it.
More and more questions will be raised about how reparations would work.
who would benefit?
And how it would be funded.
But no matter which side of the conversation you land,
We can all agree that this is one well worth having.
I'm Emily.
I'm Stephanie.
I'm Shannon.
I'm Astrid.
and I'm Ashley.
And for more videos like this, click here, and to subscribe, click here.